Okay. So now we really start the new material, and that's what we are going to do in the rest of this lecture. Remember, we are talking about supply side, that's I am sure you now remember, and today we are going to talk about the one specific types of markets, which is called competitive markets. We are going to define what it is, and our key question will be, why does the law of supply hold? In other words, why in these markets, the competitive markets, market supply curve is upward sloping? That's the law of supply. So why it is so? We need to know some type of micro, really deep explanation for that phenomenon. We will study with you how the firm, which is the firm operating in the competitive market, would have to maximize its profit. And remember, that's the goal of any firm. But so if you are in the competitive market with your firm, what would you do to maximize the profit? That's the question. We will also study two important decisions today, exit and shutdown decisions, and we will relate them with the concepts of short run and long run, which we introduced last time. And finally, we will distinguish between supply curve of a firm and supply curve of a market. And our final goal is to come to this supply curve of a market and also see how it is different between short run and in terms of the short run and the long run. A perfectly competitive market is the market with many buyers and sellers. That's the first important characteristic of the market. And second important characteristic is that this is the market with identical good. The goods offered by the sellers are largely the same. So if you think about these two and now start to imagine different markets, you have to come up to the idea which markets are more or less competitive, more or less fit to this story. A market for coffee, which you have in Sydney, is competitive market because clearly there are many buyers. These buyers are we, consumers. There are many people living in Sydney who consumes coffee. There are clearly many sellers, and coffee, let's say some particular coffee, let's say cappuccino, is largely the same between various sellers. So that could be an example of quite competitive market. Similarly, fish market in Sydney is also competitive because there are a number of sellers there, there are quite many of them, and they sell more or less homogeneous good. Whatever it is, you may pick up salmon and you think that this salmon is more or less the same among all those people. So at any moment when you see many buyers and many sellers, that means that that should be a competitive market. What actually important is that a single buyer, a single seller would have a negligible impact on the market price. And under these two conditions, we believe this condition would be, this statement would be mostly satisfied. Think about the coffee market again. The coffee market, cappuccino, for example, costs about 3.5. So could you sell cappuccino at $5 per cup? Probably not, because nobody will buy it. So you as a seller cannot really freely choose 5 for you. You of course can choose 2.5, but unfortunately if you choose 2.5, everybody will run to you, will buy your cappuccino, and basically you will realize quite fast that of course you are very small comparing you with the total demand, so you are run out of cappuccino already to the middle of the day, and you could well sell it during this day at $3.5, but you sold only at 2.5. So it's also not actually a good idea to undercut market price. This why at these competitive markets sellers cannot really change the price, and also buyers cannot change because we all know that we cannot really argue. So you see the price and that's the price you accept. We, both sellers and buyers, behave in this sense in this market as price takers. There is a third condition, also important for perfectly competitive market, that firms can freely enter or exit. That is, there is no, for example, restriction that it should be not more than 2,000 coffee kiosks at Sydney at all. So if there is a free entry and exit, that's the third important condition for a perfectly competitive market. The examples which I give you, I think that the coffee is a reasonable example for a competitive market, and of course bear in mind that there is no really pure, absolutely competitive market. Competitive market concept is a pure concept. It's just ideally can exist, but any actual market may be more or less close to this concept. But then if you think about coffee, you may also think back a little bit about the production. The coffee farms, those people who are growing coffee on the tree, they also have a market because they are producers there, and those people who sell us the coffee, they are buyers on that market. And this is also a very competitive market because there are a lot of actually producers of the coffee, these small farms somewhere in South America, and there are many people who are retailers in this market who are going to buy coffee from them and then sell them to the final market. Farming is another example, close to this example of coffee beans. So this is the also competitive market. Many people think that many stock exchange market, not all, but many, especially for those stocks which are sold in a large amount each day, they are competitive. Forex, for example, the exchange rate market is competitive. So there are many markets which more or less fit to this story under these three conditions. Okay, and so if you assume that you are in this competitive market, you would like to maximize profit, and you would like to know, you cannot choose price, so you would like to know how much to produce. You want to choose quantity. That's the only actually decision which you have to make. You have to make the decision about the level of your output. That's all what you can do. So we take the market price as given, P, and we will start with revenue. Revenue is a part of profit, but revenue is an important part of profit. That's actually what makes us happy, because we get this revenue. So if you think in analytical terms, revenue depends on quantity. If you produce more, you have higher revenue. And this revenue can be really written in a simple way, P times Q, because price is given number in terms of, in the example of coffee is 3 times Q, that's your revenue. Two other concepts are useful, average revenue and marginal revenue. Average revenue and of course revenue per output. So you divide P times Q by Q and you get P. Marginal revenue is marginal revenue, what you know, it's actually the derivative of this function with respect to Q, because Q is the changing variable, that's an independent variable, and the marginal revenue is also P if you differentiate this function. In this case, I can also explain that marginal revenue is P by a very simple example. You have a coffee, you sell one additional coffee. What is your revenue which you get from this one additional coffee? Well, it's exactly price of this coffee, so it's P. We will see later, however, that these two equalities do not necessarily hold for other firms in other markets, not perfectly competitive firms. In particular, for monopoly, it's not true. So both concepts would still remain. Average revenue and marginal revenue, we will find out they are important, but they are not equal to price. But back to competitive firms, these are prices. And let me lead you first through the example which is also in your textbook, through the table example. So here is an example of competitive market, the market for mowing, and each person offering to mow your lawn takes price as given, because it cannot control the price because there are so many other loans there. And let's suppose that the price is given to 20. Then we can basically, sketch and think how this table looks like. So suppose that we offer for mowing 0, 1, 2, etc. loans. That's the first column in this table. Depending on that, you can easily compute revenue. If you offer nothing, you get 0. If you offer 1, you get 20. If 2, you have 20 for each, 40, and so on. That's the second column. And then this column number 5, this is marginal revenue. So what is marginal revenue? If you think about the table, it's actually what in addition you get when you go from this line to the next line. So when you go from the first line to the second, you get 20, and then again 20, and then in addition 20, and so on, and that's basically absolutely consistent with what we found out before. Average revenue is indeed 20 in this case. But revenue is not all. The firm which wants to maximize profit also have to look at the cost. So revenue minus cost, that's what actually the concern of the firm. Cost depends on the cost function. So we should make an assumption here, and we will make an assumption that cost function is given by this function. So that's 10 plus 2q plus 2q squared. Okay, with this cost function, that's the total cost, can be computed, and so we will fill the third column of our table. For 0 loans, for example, you just pay fixed cost 10. For 1 loan, you pay fixed cost 10 plus 2 out of variable component, and you have 14 as the total cost. And then you can check this table yourself, that for any further lines, you just get the numbers which are written here. Now you have total revenue, you have total cost, and now you are ready to compute total profit. Okay, that's really the goal. Total profit is revenue minus cost, and so line by line we just subtract the column 3 from the column 2. 0 minus 10, minus 10. 20 minus 14, 6, and so on. Now we look at the profit and we observe interesting thing. We observe that initially profit would increase. So when you produce really nothing, it makes sense for you to start to produce something because you will get higher profit. You will get this higher profit until line 4, until the line in this table where the number of loans is 4. And then you will have the same profit 30 when you have 5 loans. When you offer this moving market 5 loans. And well, then finally, after this, you will see that profit starts to decrease. Okay, so it seems that there is actually some optimal amount of loans for you. Well, it might be 4 or 5, which will give you exactly the same profit, 30. Okay, so that's, first of all, that's an observation. You don't have to expect that you have to, if you have many loans, that you have actually to make your production to offer at the market as many loans as you have. There is some optimal amount which would maximize your profit. And this optimal amount is not small, it's nothing, but it's also not big. Well, 4 or 5 in this case. What is so special about these numbers, 4 and 5? In order to answer that question, let's make another step and let's compute marginal cost. Okay, remember, marginal cost we can actually compute analytically as the derivative, and I would suggest you to think about this as a natural way to compute marginal cost. But for the sake of this example, let's just compute marginal cost using the table. When we use this in the table, we know that marginal cost is just an additional cost which you incur when you go from one line to the next one. So, for example, from 10 to 14 you get 4, and so on. Now let's look on this marginal cost column, let's compare with marginal revenue column, and observe that they get somehow equal at exactly quantity 5, which is one of those two numbers which seems to maximize quantity. Okay, so the observation which comes from this table, and this is only observation at this point, is that profit is maximized when marginal revenue and marginal cost are the same. So to summarize, the firm, competitive firm, wants to maximize profit. To do it, this competitive firm computes revenue and computes cost, computes the difference, and find out what is the optimal quantity where profit is maximum. And at this moment we just observe that marginal revenue and marginal cost will be the same at this point. Let's remember this observation, and in the next part just show that that's exactly the condition for profit maximization.